When talking about Postal, most people think of it as a dark comedy game with slapstick humor and a sarcastic main character. This mainly stems from the most popular game in the series, Postal 2, released in 2003, which was by far the most infamous game in the franchise. I feel like one of the biggest reasons why Postal 2 was so successful is because every parent and politician at the time tried to get this game banned. But while they were trying to get the game banned, they were unknowingly making the game a success because the more and more you try to push a game away from people, the more and more they're going to want to play it. From then on, the series was just known for being a dark comedy series about a dude just trying to get his errands done. But the game series did not start this way. Back in 1997, when Postal 1 was released, it was a much different experience. So yeah, as you can see, it's a bit different from what the series would become later on. Let's just get right into it. From the second you start the game, you know Postal 1 is going to be way darker than you would first think. This title screen is such an unnerving image to start the game off on. Something about the weird man standing in a valley full of skulls next to that cropped picture of a mouth never failed to make me feel uneasy. The rest of the game is no different from this title screen. When you start up a game, you're met with this image. Now, what you're seeing here is the loading screen between each and every level. Now, it actually changes based on which level you're playing, but they all have one thing in common. They're all supposed to be like the ramblings of our main character as he's going through this psychotic breakdown. Judging by the fact there's a date tied to this entry, it makes me feel like this is some sort of journal for our main character. The gameplay and story of the first Postal game are both very simple. You see, you play as a man simply known as the Postal Dude, who lives in a small town called Paradise located in Arizona. You see, the Postal Dude isn't having the best of times right now. According to the manual, he's lost his job and is now getting kicked out of his own home, which has left the Postal Dude in a very bad mental state. So instead of talking to a therapist or a loved one about his issues, he immediately picks up the nearest weapon and decides to go on a mass murder spree. Understandably, the police do not like you going on a mass murder spree, so they're here to stop you from, going on a mass murder spree. The game plays like a basic top-down isometric shooter. Now, originally, the controls for this game were way different, but thanks to the recent patch, the controls for the original version of the game were a lot different. They were like tank controls, if you know what those are. But thankfully, running with scissors changed that in a recent update, so now you just use WASD to move, the number keys to change weapons, and your mouse to shoot. The game has about like 16 levels, I think. The game has around 16 levels, 22 if you include the 6 extra levels, including in the expansion packs. And all they are is you running around an area, and you have to kill a certain amount of police officers before you get to continue. Now, the thing about Postal 1 is, besides like 2 other games in this franchise, it's one of the only games that requires you to kill people. The rest of them, for the most part, you can play them pacifistically. Not this one, though. Though it is worth mentioning that you only have to kill people who have guns. Anyone who is unarmed is not required to kill. Though it is pretty hard not to kill them, considering a lot of the times they run in front of your crossfire and just get in the way. And when you're running fast across different enemies, it can be hard to make them out between the cops. But despite that, it is something that's worth mentioning. I know I've already talked about how this game gives me eerie vibes, but the gameplay especially does that well. Instead of having cheesy background music to go alongside with the gameplay, the only thing to accompany your gameplay is the sounds of the atmosphere, your gun, your footsteps, and of course, the screams of your victims. The only time there's really music inside of the game is in main menus and credits. The rest is just this. This really helps drive home the eerie atmosphere and darker themes of the first Postal game. It is genuinely no wonder why the game quickly became so infamous. I mean, at the time, most shooter games had you playing as a badass fighting other badasses in an arena, or a lone survivor fighting off the legions of hell, or aliens or robots, but this game is just about a crazed lunatic killing innocent people. And it is quite dark. But the game makes it very clear that what you're doing is not a good thing. And it also never really portrays our main character as a heroic figure. From start to finish, Postal 1 is a pretty disturbing and dark experience. While there is an expansion pack called Special Delivery that mainly focuses on being more tongue-in-cheek, the base game itself is very disturbing and very dark, as I've mentioned. Now, if there's anything you know about this game, it's probably one of the most infamous scenes from the game. And that would be, well, the parade scene. But if there was two things you would know about this game, it would be the parade scene and the ending to the game. Now, I'm gonna put two warnings here. One is obviously for spoilers, and two, this is where the game gets very, very grim. I know I've been throwing around the terms grim, disturbing, dark, and edgy, and all that, but I truly mean it. This ending is really, really disturbing and will be very uncomfortable for some people. So the final level of the game features the Postal Dude breaking into an Air Force base and massacring everyone in it. And it plays just the same as every other level in the game. And just like every other level in the game, once you clear out all the enemies, you press F1 to continue to the next level, where you're met with this is without a doubt one of the most shocking moments of the entire game. But before you worry, you don't actually play it. What you're about to see is just a cutscene. The ending features the Postal Dude approaching a school and opening fire, but none of his weaponry has any effect on the children. It has been confirmed by Running with Scissors, the company that made this game, that right now the Postal Dude is hallucinating this event, and this didn't really happen. The Postal Dude then falls to the ground and passes out, and is then later taken into police custody and thrown in a mental asylum.
Population pressure and the stress of modern life will cause an increase in violent tendencies. The urban environment is the incubator for all sorts of undesirable behaviors. However much his atrocities disgust us, he may actually consider himself a hero. This is common among those who, in the popular slang, go postal. In his tortured mind, he may feel that he's battling against impossible odds. It is not unusual for such individuals to believe that the entire fate of the world rests with them. In the end, our subject display all the classic symptoms of paranoid delusion. We may never know exactly what set him off, but rest assured we will have plenty of time to study him.
And just like that, the game is over. The ending to Postal is very bleak and very disturbing, of course. You spend the entire game causing so much destruction and mayhem across the entirety of the town, and the ending feels like the perfect ending to it. You don't receive a reward, you were just locked up forever, left alone with your thoughts, to be studied by a bunch of scientists in a mental asylum. It makes perfect sense why the game wouldn't reward you with some big ticket home and a fat reward. Instead, the game makes you sit and look at the consequences of what you did. There is no happy ending for anyone involved, and there is no reasoning or justification for anything that happened during it. If I had to describe the first Postal game in a few words, it would be shock value done right. But it doesn't feel like it's trying to be shocking for the sake of being shocking, you know? It feels like it's trying to make a point about what that point is. I'm not fully sure. I feel like it has to do something with the nature of violence in our society. As I mentioned earlier in the video, the later expansion pack and entries in the Postal series would stray far away from its horror roots and would go for a more dark comedy approach, which honestly I think was the best option for this. But Postal 1 will always stick with me as one of the most disturbing, dark, yet strangely artistic games I've ever played. Oh right, I was supposed to mention how the game actually played and my thoughts on it. Uh, I like it, and the gameplay is kinda eh. Yep. Alright, that's it. Subscribe!